Hey,
Welcome.
and good morning from Cambridge.
Good morning.
We are live in Cambridge. It is 7 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh my God.
It is still dark, but good morning to you, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our Global Preparation Centre event for 2025. We are delighted to be here with you today.
We are delighted and a little bit sleepy because we had a late night yesterday speaking to teachers all over the world, and we're back. We need coffee, but we are extremely happy to have you all here. So buenos dias, bon dia. Hello, my name is Luisa Gião, and I'm the head of regional marketing for West Europe. I'm here today with my fantastic colleague Graham Seed. Graham, it's so good to be here with you.
It is, thank you, and likewise.
Yes, I came all the way from Madrid just to be here with you and with all the teachers that are joining us live from all over the world. We had teachers yesterday from everywhere, Azerbaijan,
So many countries.
name it.
Argentina, Vietnam, everywhere. Yeah.
Portugal, Italy. It was fantastic. Well, Graham, you are my fantastic colleague and a senior research manager here at Cambridge. But in fact, you started your career as an English teacher working in different countries, right?
Yeah.
And then you joined Cambridge 16 years ago, working in assessment design and delivery. And now you are in the research team, which is a really important team. And we're going to talk more about that, about the work you do. You work on all sorts of different projects, including things that have to do with the CEFR, a very important reference for us. Part of your role is also as a speaker at international events, talking about issues to do with language education and assessment, of course. And it's the first time we have this gig together.
It's brilliant.
It's
I
fantastic.
loved it yesterday, and I'm looking forward to today. Thanks, Louisa.
Thank you.
So it's fantastic that we are here today. I'm really excited about the program that we have. You have also started, Louisa, as an English teacher.
Yep.
I was going to say many years ago.
Many.
But what my point is, then you moved into publishing, didn't you, after that? And 10 years ago, I think, you joined Cambridge.
Yes.
And at Cambridge, you've worked in all the different areas that we have here. So editing, teacher training, marketing. So you really know the world of ELT really well.
I love it. It's fantastic to work with English teachers all over the world. We are very privileged.
Well, we are back. Many of you joined us for our Preparation Centre event in 2023, and then again last year, 2024. And as it was so incredibly popular, it has now become an annual event.
And it's so good to be back in Cambridge and to co-host with you, Graham. As I said, it's our first time, well, second, if we count yesterday, but still feels like the first time. Now, if you missed last year's sessions, which were around the exam preparation journey, we will add a link to the chat box with the YouTube playlist, so you will not miss anything.
Our programme today is packed full of ideas and practical advice. The topics are based on the feedback that we receive from teachers around the world via our global survey.
With our experts' guidance, we hope this global online event will bring you inspiration and tools to build your confidence as a teacher and also to grow your students' confidence around Cambridge English qualifications that we love so much. These sessions are brief, but they are completely packed with useful tips, and we will add the relevant links in the chat box throughout today.
So just a few housekeeping notes before we start. Some of the sessions, in fact, I think all of the sessions will be recorded and will be made available to view later, but the slides won't be shared.
And we'd love to hear from you, so please do use the chat box to engage with us during the session. And at the same time, if you have questions for the panelists, please use the question and answer box. We will remind you, but it's really important that if you want your questions to be answered, that you put them in the question and answer box. And we will do our best to answer everyone. And if we can't answer, we will follow up with the information. So don't worry.
Louisa, do you know the question that we get asked the most?
I think I do.
It is, will we be sent a certificate of attendance? And the answer is?
Yes! Yes, you will.
You will be sent a certificate of attendance along with invaluable resources in an email over the next few weeks. So I think that pretty much covers all our housekeeping.
Yeah. So we are ready. We are ready to move on to our first session, a very, very important session, which is all about going back to basics. And what's the point of doing assessment in the first place, right, Graham? And I actually am going to hand over to you because you're leading the session. Thank you so much. Over to you.
That's right. Thank you, Louisa. Hello, everybody, again. So today I'm going to talk through what is the point of assessment? Why do we do assessment? And that's because in my role as researcher in the research team here at Cambridge University Press and Assessment, I speak to teachers and to candidates and to students, and I hear people say, well, why do we do assessment? What's the point? Why bother having good quality assessment? So I'm going to talk around some issues or challenges or problems that I and my colleagues often hear about what can we do about language assessment? What is the point of having good quality language assessment? What are the values that we in Cambridge have when we think about making sure we have good quality language assessment? And I'm going to start with a problem or an issue that we hear frequently, and maybe you as teachers, you resonate with this, is that you believe, perhaps rightly, that learning and teaching are more important than assessment. In fact, so important, why bother doing assessment? Learning, of course, is very important. It helps learners learn English. That's the point of what we do. Whereas assessment is scary. Assessment is all about sitting in a big exam hall full of desks with a scary looking invigilator counting down the time. Well, I want to challenge that view and talk about how it's important to integrate learning and assessment together. Assessment is there to reinforce the knowledge and the skills that learners have when it comes to English proficiency. It's about identifying strengths. It's about identifying areas for improvement. And so we in Cambridge have been researching this idea of how do we combine integrated learning and assessment. And if we could have the first slide up, please. So we have, as I said, we've been looking into this, and recently we have released a new paper, a Cambridge paper in English language education. And this paper is freely available to be downloaded from our website using the QR code that's on screen now. And this paper summarizes our approach into the research that we have done about the fact that assessment is not only about those traditional formal tests, but is in fact about any activity that gives us information about how the student is doing. So it combines those high stakes, formal, traditional forms of assessment together with assessments that happen in the classroom as well. Integrating learning and assessment is all about combining learning and teaching methods to plan, to measure, and to improve outcomes for our learners. Now, in that paper, we talk about how to integrate learning and assessment in the classroom as well as in high-stakes assessments such as Cambridge ones. And we talk about 4 pillars of integrated learning and assessment. And they're on screen now. And you as a teacher, I'd encourage you to reflect on how well you put these pillars into practice in your classrooms. So the first one is about setting learning objectives. Do you do that? Do you make sure that you have a clear idea of what you want the learners to learn? And then we need to find evidence of progress of learning. That's the second pillar. And that actually is assessment. Assessment can be anything, all sorts of different ways of checking that your learners have made progress in that area. And then what do you do with that assessment? Maybe you want to give a grade to your learners, okay, but how useful is giving a grade? Actually, it's more useful to be able to give the learner specific feedback. What did they do well? What could they improve on? How can they action that? How can they take that forward into their learning in the future? That's going to be more useful for them. And then, of course, you want to follow up. You want to give specific activities that encourage that learner or that group of learners to put that feedback into action. Okay, so that's my first point. How can we integrate learning and assessment together? My second point is about, and it's something I really hear often, is that teachers say, my students, they know the grammar, they know pieces of vocabulary, but they can't put it into practice. They can't use that. They don't know how to speak. And maybe you identify with that problem at all. And so we at Cambridge definitely believe in putting everything together for communication. We call this the communicative approach. And we, in our classrooms, in our learning materials, and in our assessments, we want to facilitate an English learner's ability to communicate in real-world tasks, in authentic tasks, that make sure that they use their linguistic knowledge in appropriate contexts. And those contexts are often social. They have to think about how they are behaving when they are speaking to somebody. It also involves cognitive elements. Are they able to cognitively process things that they have heard, for example, and then respond to it in conversation, for example? And when we put all of those elements into learning materials, into assessment materials, that's going to make it more relevant for the learners and ultimately more motivating for the learners. So let's move on. Thirdly, I hear this issue, particularly from learners. Learners say, I can't speak English, I'm not fluent. And that's actually rubbish because they do know some English. Okay, they may not be perfectly proficient, but they know some English. And my third point is all about the importance of a language learning journey to move forward in proficiency. We in Cambridge, we often use the CEFR, something that Louisa mentioned when she was introducing me, the Common European Framework of Reference for Learning and Teaching and Assessing Languages. If you know something about that, you might know about the scale, which goes from pre-A1, A1 for those who are just starting out on their language learning journey, going up all the way to B2, C1, C2 for those who are more proficient. And we put all our learning materials and our assessment products onto this scale, which is helpful to show progression so that the learners can feel a sense of achievement as they go up through those levels. And it's part of my work here at Cambridge in the research department to make sure that our assessment products are actually at those CFR levels. So we do different research studies, different alignment, statistical procedures to make sure that our tests actually measure at those levels. Finally then, that leads into my fourth point about the quality. How do we make sure that our tests have quality? Because I often hear, well, it doesn't matter which tests we use. And I would say, do those tests have quality? Is the test fit for purpose? And there are internal and external checks that we can do to make sure our tests are fit for purpose. In Cambridge, we use this strange acronym here, VRIPQ. And what that stands for is, V is for validity, valid. Is the test valid? Is it fit for purpose? Is it doing what we want it to do? R is for reliability. Is the test reliable? Is it accurate? I is for impact. Does it have positive impact? P is for practicality. Is it practical to do this test? Do we have the resources needed for it? And that's an acronym that we use in Cambridge. It leads us to the Q, which is quality. And that's an acronym that even you in your classroom assessments can put into practice as well. Is the test valid? Is the test reliable? Does it have positive impact? And is it practical? Can we actually do it? So those are internal checks that we can do to make sure our assessments are doing what we want them to do. We also have external checks. For us in Cambridge, we use bodies such as ALTE, the ALTE, which is the Association of Language Testers in Europe. That's an external body who can check that our tests are actually fit for purpose, and they award a quality mark, a mark of quality to our tests, and our tests have that quality. And that's just one indication of an external check. So you can be reassured that our tests really do have the quality. So those are things that we do in Cambridge and that you can do when you're thinking about classroom assessment. But the question is, what's the consequence? What's the point? Does it have an effect on the learner? And that's why in Cambridge we have a research team, but we also have an impact team. And I'm going to bring in my colleague, Ainur Karakot, now, who is from the impact team in Cambridge. Ainur, if you are there, hopefully you are there,
Yes.
Can you tell us about the impact? What research do you do to make sure that our tests have a good, positive impact on our learners?
Thank you, Graham. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Ainur, and I am Senior Impact Evaluator at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Ray, as you rightly pointed out, when we design tests, we need to ensure that tests have positive consequences, washback, and impact on our learners, teachers, and other stakeholders. And it is good to point out the consequences of good language assessments. For example, at Cambridge, we continually gather evidence from stakeholders to see how our assessments are impacting learning and teaching outcomes. How do we do this? We visit schools, conduct lesson observations, and talk to learners, teachers, parents, and other decision makers. And of course, many can be said about the considerations or expectations for good language, good quality language assessments. And considering the time limits, I will focus on three big themes. So the first one is how accurate and comprehensive is a well-designed test provides information about learners' language ability and progress. What value, what recognition does the test bring for the test takers? And in the next slide, for example, I will show the testimonials from different people about different tests from different contexts and countries. Here we can see some examples that good quality language assessments can be trusted by learners, teachers, employers, and importantly, parents as well. For example, we can see that the parent finds the test very rewarding for a child to be able to show his or her level with a certificate. And moving on to the second theme is to ensure that tests do not strictly restrict teachers to only teaching what's in the test. The test should support educators in delivering full range of language skills. And here, as you mentioned, Graham, CFR abilities can be helpful as enabling tools where both the curriculum and assessment can complement each other. For example, in the next slide, we can see one case study from a higher education institution in India, where was careful planning at the systemic level. They have ensured that the test doesn't have negative consequences on continuous implementation of the curriculum. And they've used can-do abilities to test learning objectives and assess their students and provide evidence of progress. And finally, the next thing talks about the test preparation as a learning journey, as a learning opportunity. We know that test preparation is a element for learners, teachers, parents, and preparing for the test can be valuable learning experience. And the test should provide an opportunity for learners to learn new skills where test preparation becomes a meaningful learning journey, not just a way to chase scores. And how can this be possible? Thanks to good quality language assessments, which provide rigorous skills in the test. And in the next slide, for example, we can see some testimonials again from different countries. For instance, during the course of the test preparations, learners may develop the skills because good quality assessments can help them set a target goal. For example, the teacher preparing students for B2 first mentioned that exams usually have a target. Students usually have a target, and it motivates them. And or even the teachers may find themselves influenced by the test and teach the skills that they've never taught so before, like interactive communication. So these are three big themes and the evidence that we've gathered across different countries. Thank you.
I know. So we're going to turn to you now, and if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A.
Yes, it was very, very interesting to hear, and Ainur, thank you so much. I think this is so important to go back to the basics, understand why we do assessment. And Ainur, one of the things that I hear a lot when I speak to teachers, some teachers that are a little bit skeptical about assessment or exams, they tell me, I don't like to teach for the exam. I want my students to speak, to communicate. And what we are saying is that actually the exam and preparing for the exam or for the assessment is part of that learning process.
I totally agree, Louisa. For example, recently when we conducted a study on CQs in one of the countries in Europe, we noticed that students are actually aware of the skills that are included in language tests, and they are very motivated because our tests are prepared in a rigorous way. And as Graham mentioned, there are communicative language abilities embedded in the language test. So during the course of the preparation for language tests, the students learn, not just, improve their scores, but learn the communicative skills, including those speaking abilities.
Yes, that's absolutely fantastic. And we have a question from Konul Aslan. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. How often is it advisable to assess learners' progress? Ainur, do you have, and Graham, can you advise on that?
That's an excellent question, isn't it? And it's a really good question because the answer is all the time. When we're talking about integrated learning and assessment, you as a teacher can be assessing the learners all the time when they're in the classroom. That may sound strange, but you need to think about the different ways in which you can be assessing learners. Remember, just walking around the classroom, listening in to their conversations, checking they are doing the right thing, checking their work. That is a form of assessment as well. Now, of course, there are different forms of assessment. So we can have an end of term assessment, checks that happen at the end of each chapter, for example, and those more, let's say, more formal forms of assessment that might be actually taking a Cambridge English qualification. So you can see there's a whole range of different sorts of assessments that goes all the way from just monitoring the students all the way up to a formal Cambridge English qualification. Everything is about assessments, but it shouldn't be scary. It's just part of their learning. It makes sense. Ainur, I don't know, do you want to add to that? What have you seen from the studies that you have done?
Yes, I totally agree with you, Graham, but I also would like to add that it depends on the purpose of assessment. So the teacher needs to think, what am I going to do with this, assessment, if they are talking about like the tests that they are thinking of, like quizzes or other types of summative assessments. And they also have to plan if they have time to give feedback to students based on those assessments. So just giving tests or any assessment formats to students and assessing them and just giving them information about their grades, but not providing feedback is not a good practice. So the teachers need to consider the purpose and whether they will have time and resources to give feedback on those, on that progress or on the level of students.
That's fantastic, Ainur. I remind everyone watching, please write your questions at the Q&A chat box. And Ainur, I have another question for you. In all the studies that you've conducted, have you ever been completely surprised by what you found? Anything you want to share? Any nice, interesting discovery?
Yeah, there are so many interesting, stories, but I could say something from studies about young learners because, we are so used to hearing about language learning, language assessment about adults or students in higher education. But we conducted study in Italy, Turkey, and other countries, Vietnam. So we found that they find language tests very useful also to help them progress their communication skills. And thanks to the progress in their English language ability, they see this as an opportunity not to only talk to, English as a first language speakers, but also speakers across the world. And this shows the role of English as a global language. And they provided drawings, reflecting on their learning journey. And I think that was really interesting.
Oh, that's fantastic. We have lots of questions coming in for both of you. So this is a very interesting question. Should parents be informed with the assessment results, whatever they are?
Well, do you know what, Louisa? Later on, we have a session about talking to parents.
Yes,
I think it's the next session. But it's a good question. Should parents be informed about all assessment results? I think obviously parents want to know if their child is progressing well. So you need to be communicating with them. You need to be letting them know how their child is doing, of course. But because assessment, there's a whole range of different assessments you can do. Of course, you don't need to let the parents know about every single small quiz that you do in the class at all. A lot of those sort of minor assessments are useful for you as the teacher and for the learner to reflect on their learning just briefly, just quickly. And so you don't need to go to the parents the whole time. But let's ask our panelists of the next session about talking to parents.
We'll go back to that question, that's for sure. I have another good one. How can teachers make sure that the positive impacts of assessment will be long-lasting after their students are done with the assessment?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think that's one for Aina from an impact point of view.
Yeah. Okay. So here comes the role of impact. When we design our language assessments, we consider the positive consequences, positive impact in the long run, right at the start of the test design. So what does it mean? It means that there are so many elements, and one of the key points is that the test, as I mentioned earlier, includes rigorous skills. So the students, the candidates, when they take the test, they become proficient, but also gain experience, gain skills in communication skills. So I think this is one element of good quality language assessment where those thoughts about positive consequences and impact is embedded. And if you ask that if candidates, they've already gain good scores and how you can, for example, benefit from this from these learners. They can be champions for language assessment and language learning. You can, ask them to come to your classes and talk to your students, motivate them. This is one way how the candidates with good scores can be helpful.
Great. Do you want to add anything, Graham?
Oh, I was just going to say it's really important, isn't it, that the assessments, when you're talking about an end-of-year assessment or a Cambridge English qualification, it tests language in general, relevant language to the learner, obviously, but language in general. So a Cambridge English qualification doesn't necessarily only focus on certain grammar points. It's checking whether the learner can use English at that level, which does, in one way, make it more difficult because how do you prepare for that? But on the other hand, it means that they really have a good level of English language, which means that they are genuinely prepared to go into life. There are long-lasting consequences of making sure that they know language generally at that level, rather than only a few specific grammar points. So that is going to have longer-lasting impact, longer-lasting benefits on the learner for the rest of their life. And we want to encourage learning for the whole of their lives. It doesn't stop when they finish school. It needs to carry on into life. It has to.
Absolutely.
And so we're very supportive of that at Cambridge.
Absolutely. And great answers to great questions. We have time for one more or a couple more, depending how quickly we can answer. This is a good one too, about self-assessment. How can students assess themselves by themselves? What's your recommendation?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Self-assessment is another form of assessment that we as teachers need to make sure that the learners are doing. In our course materials, for example, in our course books, there are lots of opportunities for reflection. Lots of our new titles start the chapter setting out those learning objectives that I talked about, and then finish the chapter, or even part the way through the chapter, identify areas for self-reflection so that the student learns how to learn, that they are assessing themselves. How do I feel about doing that? And then it's interesting, isn't it, to match that up with what the teacher thinks about the student. If there's time, ideally, you can have a quick one-to-one conversation. Are you matching up what the student has decided about their learning against what the teacher has decided? It's a really important skill to encourage.
And very much part of the way we see integrating learning and assessment is the student also taking a more active part in that process. Let's see if we can ask two more, because these are really good.
Okay.
So quick answers.
Yes.
Could you answer how we should or could overcome cultural differences by using assessment?
Ooh, Aina, do you want to speak quickly to that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what cultural difference means there. I guess it's about the uptake of the tests in different countries. I think you can use examples showing good progress, learning the life skills, communication skills, provide evidence from different countries or cultures and show that, look, they have gained this X, Y, and Z skills, they have improved. And why don't we bring this experience to our country or maybe local culture or school culture?
Well, very good question. It's a tricky one, and we are seeing here also some questions about learning materials. So we're not going to answer here, but we make sure that we pass on those requests to the people in the markets that can help you. So make sure also in the feedback that you ask to be and give us permission to contact you. So that's fantastic. And one final question from Cecilia. Working with materials such as TEDx academic talks has helped them. Do you think it's a good idea? Authentic.
Absolutely. Authentic. TEDx talks are brilliant.
Yeah.
You can put the subtitles on if you want to. It's a really good, authentic way of giving your learners practice in listening and watching. You can set questions, they can discuss the topic. It's perfect for that juicy topic discussion.
What a lively session, and so many questions. Thank you so much for sending the questions. And thank you so much, Ainur. It was great to have you here again. And thank you, Graham, of course. It's really so important to reflect why we do assessment. Well, it's time to now take a little break because we need coffee. And
I do.
And then we move on to our next session. We would love you, please, for you to share the thoughts on this session we just had with Ainur and Graham. So your feedback really, really helps us to ensure that we build sessions that support your institution. That's what we want. And it's a quick survey. It shouldn't take more than 1 or 2 minutes to complete, and it will pop up on the screen just after this session. So please do give us that feedback.
Now, if you are planning to join our next session, which is called Making the Connection, Helping Parents See the Value of Exams, all about parents that I mentioned earlier. This session will begin at 7:45 a.m. UK time, of course, and it is on a different Zoom link. So please be sure to leave this meeting and then join that new session with a new Zoom link.
And don't worry if you haven't already registered for it. You can do so by scanning the QR code that you will see on the screen after. And we are going to now go and grab a cup of coffee. But we do hope to see you all again, please, on a different Zoom link at 7:45 UK time. We can't wait for the next session. Come back with us.
Exactly. We'll see you in a few minutes.
See you in a few minutes. Bye-bye.
Cambridge is where your world grows.